Hey everyone, Corbin here, back this week with uh, another deck here in our Mighty Modern series, and this one I think is a little spicy. So I'll go ahead and pull it out for you here. This is one of the more interesting lists that I've found walking around. I've seen some Zur lists in the past, and we've seen there's been some streams and things like that of them, and it can be a lot of fun. This one, however, was completely different, really caught my eye, and I liked it a lot. So if you don't know, Zur the Enchanter is a Esper colored 4-drop. It's a 1/4 with flying, and whenever it attacks, you can put an enchantment card from your library with converted mana cost 3 or less into play, which is obviously great. This card advantage, it's absurd. And that's sort of the genesis of the deck, I think. And there's been a couple different iterations of it. Some of them play sort of an Esper control, and he's sort of the finisher. But I chose this list because I think it's better than those lists. Those lists have a lot of problems where they just have a lot of sort of mediocre cards if you don't have Zur. And obviously your Zur just eats the removal spell, and that's that. This one, however, is just far different. For starters, there's this convenient thing called Theros block where creatures are enchantments. And that means that Courser of Krufix, a pretty powerful 3-drop that has seen play in Modern on its own in decks like Jund, is something you can fetch out of your deck with Zur. It's also just a great 3-drop. This card is awesome. This is one of the better targets you can get with this, and I think there's sort of the toolbox of Detention Sphere and some sideboard options and the Unflinching Courage and these things that you sometimes see with Zur, but and the Assault formation, which we'll get to in a bit. But Courser Krufix is just, you get a creature. It's a good creature. The life gain is relevant. Every piece of this card works, and it's one of the better things you can get with Zur. More importantly, it's also good on its own, and Zur doesn't have to fetch it out for it to be good. So, how do we round that out? A lot of these decks have been control based. You see Spreading Seas and a lot of different enchantments like that. And it's just everything is, they're okay on their own, but they don't necessarily have a cohesive game plan. The game plan is to play Zur and then use Zur to outvalue your opponents, but on their own they're just sort of cards, so generically good cards. And in Modern, when everyone has such a specific game plan, and oftentimes it's a very linear game plan, just playing an amalgamation of cards that happen to all work with Zur but don't accomplish anything on their own together, accomplish anything together is not necessarily where you want to be. This deck, though, plays out extremely like a rock deck, sort of the green-black decks that we've seen good, the things that form the basis of Jund, the basis of Abzan. I'm talking about Inquisition of Kozilek, Thoughtseize, Tarmogoyf, Abrupt Decay. Those are very good cards that are just generically good, and your deck already has a game plan. You see, we're already playing the control game, the long game. We're going to control what our opponents do, but while also putting pressure onto the board. The mana dorks in this deck not only allow you to have things like that turn 2 Courser, and your Abrupt Decays and your paths, if you get off all your value spells, they also help fix your mana, which is important because you are playing the blue in Zur, and that means you are a 4-color deck. Courser also helps with that because of you have to do a bunch of fetching, and the life loss is kind of negated a little bit with this. But more so than that, Doran is actually an incredible addition to this deck. Because we're playing these mana dorks already, because we're playing Zur, this card is just a 3-mana 5/5, which is nuts, and it happens to be a card that, instead of just tangentially working with Zur like a Spreading Seas or some of those other lists, it works perfectly. It makes your Zur a 4/4 when it attacks. Plus, it's a 5/5 on its own, and it's the perfect, accessory to this game plan of playing a discard spell or a mana dork, and then playing a Tarmogoyf, playing a Doran, playing a Zur. It also works great with Courser of Krufix, which hits for 4. Works great with Tarmogoyf. It works great with Spellskites, which is just obviously great in the format anyways. Everything in the deck works together. It's much more cohesive, and that's why I believe that this is the best iteration of Zur I've found, and that's why I wanted to share it with you guys. So, that's the deck. Obviously, we have a bunch of fetch lands and shock lands here to make our mana work. We have the Pass Exiles, the discard spells, the mana dorks. We're going to control the game with the pass and the discards. We're going to get ahead of our own game plan with these. We have the Goyfs and the Abrupt Decay for that same reason. Spellskites protects our big cards, protects our Goyfs, our Dorans, our Zurs. Courser gives us, now of course we have to find that late game value, and that's where we have the the Courser coming in and the Zur coming in, because these are the nice cards to top, to play after your first series of events on turn 3 or even turn 4, after you've put some pressure on the board or dealt with what they're going to do. Then you play these cards that allow you to pull ahead in that long game. Assault Formation is kind of the cute one. It's another Doran effect, essentially, only it can be fetched out with Zur. And interestingly, I've used this to save creatures from getting bolted to death and things like that. Not to mention, of course, if you have Doran or with this, you can use the pump to attack for more damage. So that's our deck. I think that it's really good. I've been playing a fair amount with it this week, and honestly, I think this is actually a very good modern deck. It's a different spin on the green-black version, and if your opponent's playing if you're playing in a field of a bunch of burn, something like that, then the mana base can be an issue because it is a little painful. But in any sort of other meta that is not heavy on the burn or hyper-aggressive decks, I really am a huge fan of what we have here. I think that this has what it takes to compete in the metagame at the highest level, not just be a gimmicky Zur deck. So let's touch on the sideboard here before we move into the games. Because we have those Zurs, we do have sort of a toolbox sideboard. Nyx Fleece Ram. It's an 05. It blocks very well, gains you some life. Nice, you can fetch it out. Pretty reasonable card against the aggressive decks. Of course, Rest in Peace. A little awkward, obviously, with our Tarmogoyfs, but it's something you can fetch out. And against the decks where you want a Rest in Peace, of really dedicated graveyard decks, you probably just board out a couple Goyfs and board in the Rest in Peace. And because if you land this, your Goyf doesn't need to be a 5/6 because you've shut down their plan. That's the idea behind it here. Of course, Stony Silences we can get with the Zur. Also, obviously, a great affinity card against them. Ruined Halo. Another card we can cast. We can name Grape Shot, things like that against the combo decks, Lightning Storm, things of that nature. Ghostly Prison. This is sort of for the Kiki Cord decks, which run around, or just hyper aggressive decks. I wouldn't mind boarding it in. Pretty good against token decks, fairies, things like that. And again, it's just we get a free roll one of them because we have the Zurs on our deck. Timely Reinforcements, of course, as you expect. Choke's another card you get with Zur. You have to play around a little because, of course, you do have a couple islands of your own, but your mana dorks help offset that, and it really shuts out some decks. Nevermore, another one we can fetch up, and again, you just against the combo decks, it's a fetchable piece that can stop them from comboing off on you, things of that nature. And of course, Kitchen Finks and Surgical Extraction just always good value. So that's our deck. I'm really looking forward to showing it to you guys this week. So let's go ahead and jump into the games.